So today we will start by recapping on functions before moving on to recursive function. And then we will do a warm-up challenge before splitting into our breakout rooms to do our actual challenge for today. So let's start with our recap. Functions. So a function is a block of code which only runs when it is called. You can pass data known as parameters into a function or arguments, and a function can return data as a result. So this is how you can create a function. So you will type def and then by underscore function. You can put any name you want. You can put like really anything you want to like name your function, and then the parentheses. And then after that, you put the colon. Next line, remember your indentations are very important. And then you can put whatever you want in that function. So for this function, you will print hello from a function. And in order for this function to like work, you'll have to call the function, something like this. So outside the function, you'll write down the name of the function. So my underscore function with the brackets. And once the function is called, it will print out whatever is in the function. So next thing is arguments. So arguments, so information can be passed into functions as arguments. Arguments are specified after the function name inside the parentheses, and you can add as many arguments as you want, just separate them with a comma. So for example, I want my function that is called my underscore function to print out hello a name. So I would put a random name as the argument. So I put as a name because that's my variable. And what this function would do is print hello with the name. So when I call my function, I will put Shermaine. So I'm assigning the variable name to as Shermaine, so that when I call this function, it will print out hello Shermaine. And then if I want to change the name to, let's say, Stephanie, then I just have to change what is in the brackets, and it just does whatever I want it to do. So the output will look something like hello Shermaine, hello Stephanie. And with that, I'm done recapping on functions, and we'll move on to recursive functions. So what is recursion, you might ask? Recursion is the process of defining something in terms of itself. So a physical world example would be to place two parallel mirrors facing each other. Any object in between them would be reflected recursively. So it's like it keeps going. So in Python, we know that a function can call other functions, and it is even possible for the function to call itself. And these types of constructs are termed as recursive functions. So this is how it will look like. So my function is called recurse. And in my function itself, I call the function. So what I will do is it will call itself, and it will go back up, and then it will do whatever the code says. And whenever it reaches itself, it calls itself again. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. And with that, we will look into the warm-up challenge to figure out what recursive functions are like. So my question for you is, write a recursive function to find the factorial of an integer. So a factorial of a number is the product of all the integers from 1 to that number. So for example, the factorial of 6 is 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 times 5 times 6. So some questions to ask yourself on how you should approach this question. So firstly, how should you first define your function? So how do you create your function? Would anyone like to put in the chat on how this syntax should be like? How should you create your function? Feel free to put it in chat on how you should create your function. Yep, that is right. So you put df and then name it however you want. So in this case, you name it factorial, and then open bracket, a number, and then close bracket. So that's how you define your function. Very good. Next, what input should your function accept? Okay, so you already got it. So it's a num. So that's the argument in your function. And then what will you write in your function? So you want to think about what you want this function to do. So if you think about it, a factorial is when you like keep multiplying by a smaller number. So let's say my number starts at 6. So the first thing I want to do is to take like 1 times 6, and then I will want to call the function itself again. But then this time I want to minus 1 to the previous number. So I want to be 6 times 5. So I have to call the function again with a smaller number, which is 5. And then it will go back down and then call itself again with a smaller number, 4. And then it keeps doing that until it reaches 1. So that might sound confusing right now, but I will show you in a while how the code will look like. So it looks something like this. So x is the number that you first accept. So if x equals to 1, then you just print out 1 straight away because the factorial of 1 is just 1. But then if it's not 1, you will want to return x times, and then you'll want to recall your function again, but with a smaller number. So let's say I put x as 3. So what it does, it goes straight into the else statement, and then it will return 3 times factorial 2. So when factorial 2 is called, it actually goes back up, and then it starts itself again. So now x equals to 2, so it goes into the else statement, and then it will return 2 times factorial 1. And since it called itself again, it goes back up, but this time x equals to 1, so it returns 1. And this is how the recursive function actually works. It just keeps calling itself over and over again. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions so far? Feel free to drop it in the chat if you're not sure. Okay, seems like there's nothing. I guess everyone's doing good. Do I have another example? Well, another example would be what we'll be doing later for our challenge. So you will like see it later. Because like later our game is called a sum game. So it's just to like add from 1 to whatever number you choose. So it's like 1 plus 2 plus 3 and all the way to the number you choose. So it's something similar. Any other questions? Okay, I guess not. So we will just move on. So Q&A time. Okay, with that, we will go into our actual challenge called a sum game challenge, which is time for our breakout rooms. And okay, so with that, I hope everyone had fun in your own breakout rooms. And okay, so this week we had our content session and our COLAB session, and next week we also have both of that. So we have our content session on 16 September, 8 p.m. EDT, and our last COLAB session next week at this time, so September 19, 11 a.m. EDT. So I hope I'll see all of you there at our last COLAB session together. Yep. And if you have any questions, feel free to join our Slack channel, and we will post all the updates there, all the COLAB notebooks that we used. And feel free to drop any questions there, and we will we will definitely help you. Yep.
Thank you.
And Stephanie has put the Slack link on the chat, so do join it if you haven't. And she also link for COLAB session together. So do remember to register, and I'll see all of y'all next week. Thank you.